Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Thursday, the 15th of July, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get started right away. Let's open up the charts right here. You know, there's trouble going on in South Africa. They're having to deploy the military in a domestic crisis that they're having right now. And what's happening is 25,000 troops are having to be deployed and mobilized. It says a last-ditch bid to quell some of the worst looting and destruction in the country in decades right now. I'm using this as an example, guys. This is what happens when society frays. What is going to fray society and make it this way? It's got an awful lot to do with money, or what we call money, which is actually currency. Being mismanaged by central banks all over the earth right now. And it's going to hit a point in the not too distant future where it's going to fray society. It's going to break holes. Holes are going to appear. Not everywhere, just in places. And these places where the holes are going to appear are going to be the places where right now you already see a fraying, but it's not real bad yet. It's just a little bit. It's going to get worse. So, places where there's generally a dense population, fairly dense population, where already the people are showing signals of unrest, or have shown signals of unrest. When prices start to get unaffordable for a lot of people now, for people who have gold and silver at a certain point are going to take off massively in price. It's going to be actually almost unbelievable. Well, let's go over here to the silver chart today. It's not up a real lot today. It's only up 4 cents. It's at 16.27. 26.27, I should say. I wish it was 16.27. 26.27. Gold and silver are going to go up massively during this crisis. Because the real truth, let's get down to the nitty-gritty, guys. Real physical precious metals is the only fundamental asset out there in the whole financial system that's actually real. All the rest of it is imitation fugazi. It's like something created from nothing. It's like fairy dust. It's like pixie dust. It's like, what is it? There's nothing out there. Absolutely nothing out there with any real substance to it. I know you got your money in the bank. But you know, the teller, she sits there and she's got the screen to herself. Generally, they don't like to show you that screen because you will make an association when you look at that screen between the money being as real as digits on a screen. That's all it is. It's just digits on the screen. It's nothing real or nothing tangible. They've separated money, what they call money, which is currency units, from reality. They've been separated from reality. Back in 1971, they started this separation when Nixon took us off the gold standard. It was connected to gold. Gold is real. Gold has substance to it. It's something you can actually hold in your hand. Same with silver. Silver has utility. Oh my goodness, silver is going to be... So people that have gold and silver, when these times hit, hard times, you know, and people are having trouble feeding themselves because they can't afford a can of beans. When a can of beans gets $50, you know, and you can't afford it. Now here we have the Fed, and they have an awful lot of what's called unfunded liabilities. I'm sure you guys have heard of what's called unfunded liabilities. Like Social Security is one of the unfunded liabilities that they have, the government. Well, you know, the price they have to pay in things like Social Security is going to go up and up and up. And the thing about it is tax revenues on the other side, you know. I mean, they're in a bind. They're in a bind because as they have to pay out more in their unfunded liabilities, everything has to move up. But this is going to leave some people out in the cold because wages aren't going to keep up, especially for certain people. You know, this whole thing is actually now moving faster. You go to John Williams, his website called Shadow Stats. You can get the real skinny on inflation, real understanding of what's happening with inflation right now. And what we're really dealing with is like 12 or 13% right now. Now, they just came out with an inflation, CPI, and it was over 5%. Now they're admitting themselves that their inflation is when they admit over a 5% rate of inflation, you can bet it's well over 10%. You know, that's a big chunk of your money if you got money in the bank right now. That means the hidden tax of inflation is going to rob you of probably around 12% of your money each year. But that's not staying at 12%. That's just suddenly rushed up to 12% very recently. It's going to continue to go higher. So what's the government going to do about all this inflation? They can't raise interest rates. They can't tighten. What'll happen is they'll get a sudden deflation, and then they'll have to come in and they'll have to save the day, and then they'll just make the inflation worse. So here's what I'm telling you guys. If they try to tighten, they're going to bring the hyperinflation sooner. If they don't do anything, if they just sit there and watch the inflation, the Fed and everybody, if it's all talk and they don't do anything, the hyperinflation will take longer to get here. If they try to tighten, if they try to fix it, it's going to come sooner. They're going to speed it up. That's all they're going to do. Because what they'll do is they'll create a crash. And then they'll have to come in and rescue us from the crash. They just can't let it continue. Because I'm going to tell you, the system really wants to deflate. It wants to just... all this pixie dust that they've created, all this fugazi, wants to evaporate and leave nothing left except gold and silver. Because every dollar that's created has debt attached to it, and that debt is accruing. It's growing, right? Exponentially growing, and so they have to keep printing more and more. If you try to pay it all off, it all disappears. Poof, the money's gone. What they call money is currency units. It's all gone. That would be the ultimate conclusion if they let it deflate. That's called a system meltdown. They can't ever let that happen. But if they trigger it, a system meltdown like a 2008 event, if they trigger it by being tight and trying to tighten, then they'll have to fix what they just did. And if they have to fix what they just did, they're going to push us into the hyperinflation even faster. It's unavoidable at this point. We've passed the point of no return. We've passed the event horizon. We're heading into the black hole whether we like it or not. And what it's going to do is it's going to create this fraying of society like we see in South Africa. Except everywhere, every country on earth is going to have areas that are going to become hard to deal with. You could describe them as a war zone area. And that is going to be determined if the grid's on or not in your area, whether it becomes that way. They're going to be able to keep the grid on. Yeah, you might have the grid go out in your area, but if you're in an area that's not undergoing an upheaval, like the people, become agitated and it creates an upheaval. If you're not in an area that has an upheaval, then they'll turn the grid back on after a few days. And you'll still have essential services and you'll still have police and everything else, But if you're in one of these areas, happen to have the misfortune of being in one of these areas where there's social unrest, tremendous amounts of social unrest, and the grid goes down, it might not ever come back on in that area. And that'll just make that area a place where it's going to be very difficult to live in an area like that. I'm using that lightly when I say very difficult to live in an area like that. And what we're going to see, as the empire decays, what we're going to see is these areas pop up. Here and there. You don't know where they're going to be right now. You can't tell. You can only tell when we get there. When we get there, And when we get into the hyperinflationary scenario and the dollars turn into toast, but what about the people who have gold and silver? What about them? They're going to be able to afford to put a meal on their table by selling a little bit of their silver or whatever. And so their life isn't going to change as radically as the people who don't have any. But you got to understand, guys, 99% of the people out there don't have any of the real fundamental that stands behind the whole world's economy as a bulwark. It is the anchor. Like if you got one of these things where tug of war, if one side don't have an anchor, the big guy is on the end, got the rope wrapped around his waist. He's the anchor. If one side doesn't have an anchor, they can be pulled over real easy, in a tug of war. And that's the way with this. If a country doesn't have any gold and silver, like maybe Canada, for instance, what a foolish move to get rid of all their gold and silver when we're going into a currency crisis worldwide, the death of fiat currencies, to get rid of all your gold and silver. Oh my goodness. But there's only one good thing going for Canada, because they don't have any gold and silver. There's only one good thing going for them. They're very rich in natural resources. Canada's a very rich country in natural resources. And they do have gold mines and silver mines here. So they can get some more out of the ground, fortunately. Anyway, we're looking at a silver price of $26.22 today. Going along kind of sideways. Let's take a look at gold. Gold today is at $18.25. It's down $2.20 on the day so far. Artificial prices, guys. It's all artificial. It's all paper. They use paper short contracts and paper to determine the price. But that's going away. Over the next year or so, it's going away. It's slowly going away. And gold and silver are bound to determine the real fair market value ultimately. And it's going to be something unbelievably high. Take a look at crypto today. This is actually, in truth, this is just more fugazi, more pixie dust. That's what it is. Seriously. I know. Bitcoin right now is worth $31,746, And I know you can buy quite a bit with one Bitcoin. You could buy quite a bit of gold right now or silver, but it's really nothing more than fugazi. Again, it's just digits. It's in the non-physical universe. It's one of these imaginary things that exists that is real right now. But it could do anything. Who can set a price on this stuff? This is pixie dust. So, it could go to $1 million. Or it could go down to $200. It's like you are really, I'm telling you, you're risking, if you're holding this stuff, you're risking becoming rich or having it turn into nothing. It's really a gamble. It's great for gamblers. Cryptocurrency is great for gamblers. If you're not a gambler, stick with your gold and silver. If you don't like gambling. But if you like gambling, you could become really rich with this cryptocurrency. Or it could evaporate into thin air. Poof, gone. But gold and silver is for people who don't want to gamble. Stick with your gold and silver. Okay, so let's take a look now at Dow Jones Industrial Average, 34,924. It's down 9 points, which is almost nothing. Right now, the markets are a big gamble, too. Let's take a look now at, I'm not against cryptocurrency. But I'm just pointing out to you guys that it's a much bigger gamble than real physical gold and silver. It's a gamble. Cryptocurrency is a gamble. So you're taking a chance. It's like you're going to the roulette wheel with cryptocurrencies. So just be aware of that. Be aware of that. You can become fantastically rich with this stuff too, Let's take a look now at crude oil at 72.80, down 33 cents on the day. Move index today, it's going down today. But it's 57.31. It was up to 60. Now it's down to 57. Let's take a look at bonds and rates today. And what we're seeing is falling yields on the long end. Short end's climbing just a little bit, but the long or unchanged. But it's long end's moving up a little bit. We're looking at 1.32 on the 10-year, and we're looking at 1.94 on the US 30-year. And now let's finish off the show and take a look at the dollar index, which is climbing today at 92.62 today. If they cause a deflationary event, the Fed, by trying to tighten or something stupid like that, like I told you earlier, if they try to tighten and they cause a deflationary event, ultimately it'll just bring the hyperinflation even faster. There's no way out at this point. They could probably move it up by 6 months, the hyperinflation, by trying to tighten. They're tightening. They would only tighten because they're scared that what they're doing is going to cause a hyperinflation. That's why they'll tighten, if they do tighten. But if they do tighten, they're just going to move the schedule up and make the hyperinflation come quicker. I know it sounds weird because there'd be a very short period of time there when the system would be starting to deflate. And all these deflationist guys out there, there's dozens of them, believe we're going to have a great deflation. They would all be jumping up and down saying, we were right, we were right, we were right, for a very short period of time. But the system, you can't let it deflate fully. And the only way deflation's going to stay here and become embedded is if you let the system fully deflate. The problem is, you let the system fully deflate, the whole system would come down, flat to the ground. There'd be nothing left. Every bank would go bankrupt. All the money would just poof, gone from the system. The deflation doesn't know where to quit, doesn't know where to stop. There's no stopping point for it until all of the bad malinvestment is gone. That would be the stopping point. How low would the market be? 2,500? What would a dollar be worth if you could ever find one? But the system, long before that, the system would actually just freeze, and everything would go dead. And the whole world would be shift, or what do they call it, SHTF or something. That's what the whole world would happen if the system froze. And they can't let that happen. They can never let that happen. Not on their watch, because they lose power then at that point. Quite literally, they lose. Electricity goes out. And as soon as the electricity goes out, telecommunications goes down. As soon as that happens, who is the world leader then? Nobody. All these leaders, they call them leaders, world leaders or lawmakers, they have to rely upon that network in order to maintain their position. If the system freezes, there is no network. It's all gone. And that's what deflation can do. So they can't let deflation weed out the excesses in the system anymore. They couldn't let it happen in 2008, and they certainly can't let it happen now. How do we get to that point in 2008 where they couldn't? Something called derivatives products. Derivatives is the reason why. And, there's like a quadrillion. That's not $1 trillion. That's $1,000 trillion worth of these derivatives products out there, which are basically an expansion of Fugazi. And if that all just locks up because they let the system deflate too far, then it's over, guys. It would be, the system would just freeze. Ice 9, just like Jim Rickard says, it would be Ice 9, and it would be over. And they can't let that happen, because then they don't have any power anymore, because they rely upon this network that's been established that keeps them in power. They know about that. They were very concerned about that back in 2008. They said if they'd let it go any longer, 2 hours more, they said, and they would have locked the system up. The whole system would have melted down, and they were really scared. Well, it's worse now. So they're going to be very careful not to let that happen. And if they see it start to move in that direction, they will do whatever it takes to keep their network established so that they can maintain power and law and order and everything else. They'll do whatever it takes. And, you know, if they create a deflation, it's going to mean whatever it takes to make that deflation go away. So these deflation guys out there believe that we can suffer through a massive deflation and the dollar go way up in value. That's a pipe dream. Ain't ever going to happen. We're just going to keep slowly trudging on higher and higher inflation until finally it starts to take off into hyperinflation. And the hyperinflation is going to tear the system apart in places before they restructure. We're going to have some sort of a restructuring of the system then. What you call a reset. It's going to come toward the end of the hyperinflation. This reset, great restructuring. And then we're going to move toward a highly technical advanced society. You know? And we're already moving in that direction. Technology is going to start to take over. And with this restructuring is going to come the central bank digital currencies. And this is going to really start to take control over a highly technological advanced society that's being built. That's a big advancement or a big step forward toward a highly technological society. A society where things like crimes like thievery and stuff, people just won't do it anymore because they're not going to get away with it. There'll be cameras everywhere. We're moving toward there's books been written, you know, dystopic type books like 1984 and stuff, Brave New World and books like that, different books like that. And this is a glimpse into a highly technologically advanced society where you don't have to carry a wallet anymore. It's all digital. They know who you are and they know how much money you got because it's all digital. Everything's going to be digital, digitized. All the people will just be a number. Each person's a number. We're moving out of the way things used to be, and we're moving toward this. And it's one of these things where it's either do or die. Either the system freezes and we go into a caveman style type life where you're living in a cave someplace if you're one of the survivors, and we don't have any technology at all, or we're moving into this technologically advanced society. One of the two. And we're heading toward the make or break, you know, and that's what I call a hurdle we're going to have to get over. Anyway, listen, guys, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the very next show. Bye-bye.